Yes.
All right. So, you know, oftentimes in our lives we come across like situations where we might like get in an argument with a person that we know that's really close to us. But then when you stop and think back to like a time where they made you really happy, you remember why you care about that person so much. So it kind of like, you know, eases the pain or you know, the feelings that you might have against that person during that situation. So one quote that is from In a Fair to Remember, which is a movie from the 50s with Cary Grant, is, "Winter must be cold for those with no warm memories." So what I take from that quote is basically that, you know, if there is those situations where you're having difficulties with people, it's hard to, I don't know, like remedy those relationships with or when you don't have something good to like look back on. So what I'm gonna tell you guys today is, you know, a few personal stories about myself where I've come across a situation where it's hard for me to meet up with some of my friends, but when I remember back to when we were kids, you know, it kind of reminds me why they are like, you know, so important to me. Or when my mom, you know, kind of pisses me off sometimes, I'll stop and I'll remember, you know what, like she's amazing for all these reasons. And there's like one story that I'll have to tell you guys about. And then lastly, I'll just tell you guys about, you know, how you can create memories now, like in the present, you know, you don't necessarily have to like look back. So first of all, I'm going to tell you guys about these like friendships that I have with these people that I've known since I was about, I don't know, 2. As long as I remember, because, you know, I had a babysitter. I used to live here in La Habra. So my babysitter was my friend's mom. So me and my friends and me and my brother are just like a year apart, and then our friends are all like really close to our age. So I grew up with them, and nowadays, you know, some of them actually go here, some of them go in Cal State Fullerton. We're all over the place, so it's really hard to meet up. A lot of us, you know, work. My brother's in the military, so it's hard to like always meet up. But when we stop and like think about, you know, back when we were little kids, we would always play like Power Rangers, or we would like play school with one of our older friends. You know, like I stop and I think like, although we've changed and we're not the same people that we were before, we are still like these, like, you know, really close friends that if we stop and look back at those times, we'll remember why we mean so much to each other. And then also, let me just tell you about with my mom, you know, sometimes she'll like kind of piss me off. She'll like nag me for really dumb things, or just, I don't know, she'll like put out her anger on me. But then I stop back and I realize, you know, how she's made all these sacrifices for me. And one story that I kind of really remember is, I don't know, I was probably like 8 or 9, and my brother had a Game Boy and I really wanted a Game Boy, so I asked for that for Christmas, and I asked for a specific Game Boy. You guys remember the Game Boy Color that was like purple but it was see-through? Yeah. I really wanted that Game Boy, and so like my mom like went out of her way, and like she couldn't find it by Christmas, and like by that time, although I was young, like I already knew Santa Claus wasn't real. So like we went to all these different stores trying to find that Game Boy, and like I remember we went everywhere, nobody had it, and she even offered to buy me like the newer Game Boy, like, you know, because there was like the Advance or something, but I wanted that Game Boy, and I remember she like tracked it down and finally got it for me, and like that's just like one thing that I think about when I think about my mom and how great she is. And then lastly, let me just tell you about how you guys can like make memories now, like just with little things. Like I'm kind of weird and I make playlists for like the different times of the year, so like right now I have my fall playlist going on, but one song that kind of transcends all my playlists and will be on it almost every time is this song called The Suburbs by Arcade Fire. And like the reason that it's on there, on almost every single one, except for maybe my Christmas playlist, is that it talks about the very thing I'm telling you guys about, you know, like this nostalgia for where you grew up, the suburbs, you know, where you learned to drive, and you took your mother's keys, you know, you drive around in her car, so it's just like, that feeling that I get when I'm driving around, like if it's by myself, you know, coming to school or like with friends, it's just I stop and I think, and I'm like, I'm making memories now that I know that later on in life, when I look back, I'm gonna think and be like, wow, I was so young and like did stupid things, or, you know, like did really cool things, like really random things with my friends. So I don't know, it just, I stop and I think about how I make memories now. So I told you guys about how, you know, memories can make you feel closer to people that you love, like your friends or your family, or you know, you're creating memories right now too that later on in life will make you happy.
5 minutes.
I can help English there.
All right, Emillio, I think the visualization that you have at the beginning is pretty good. You find a lot of things to talk about. I think you need to be a little bit more focused, and I think part of the problem is that you've got the quote, and you need to say, here's what I think it means. You know, it's important for us, make it simple. It's important for us to make memories. And I'm going to tell you about the important memories that I've made and why they are important to me. And if you say that, then it's just a little bit more coherent. That's kind of what you're getting at, but it really feels like you're wandering around a little bit. Even though you ultimately do get to those points, you need to tell us that's what you're doing so that we can see that a little bit more clearly. Your presentation, you're loud and clear when you're speaking. There's good variety in your voice. It's paced very well. Even though, like I said, sometimes it feels like you're sort of just talking. It doesn't sound like you're hesitating while you're talking. You get to the next idea. I might not even mind a couple of hesitations if the points were a little bit clearer, what it is we're supposed to be getting out of those. I thought you had a few good indicators at the beginning. I thought when you told the story about the playlist, you got a little bit more animated and had some nice gestures that went along with that. Good facial expressions. Your eye contact is not as consistent as you might think it is, because you do look up, you do have an animated face, but you have a tendency to kind of look down while you're going through an idea and you're thinking something out, and you also look up sometimes and do that same sort of thing, and it happens more than you probably realize. So you'll see that when you watch the video later on. I didn't see any obvious signs of anxiety. And I like the conclusion of the speech. You come back, you kind of summarize. It's a little bit clearer at the end what it was that you were trying to say, so that does rescue it a little bit. While I'm thinking of it, in case anybody has forgotten, if I forgot to mention it before, don't forget that you need to fill out the self-evaluation form right after you speak. And ideally, you'd leave that with me today. If you need to turn it in to me later, that's fine, but I want you to fill it out before you watch your speech online. And then post your comments online when you watch your speech. So you've got those two parts to do. All right. Thank you. Marlene, if you could come get a topic and send Rebecca in.